Welcome back, boys and girls. It is week 6 of the college football season. Therefore, it is week 7 of the Carla and Crappy Show. I am your favorite Uncle Crappy up here in Pittsburgh. The other person on your screen is our friend Carla. She's down there in Nashville. Hi, Carla.
Hello. Where it finally feels like fall. Thank God.
Oh, man, it has been so awesome here. It's been, people complain that we haven't seen a whole lot of sunshine, and that's a legit thing. I get it, but the highs have been like 60 all week.
Nice.
Like for the last month. Yes,
we've been sitting like 72 and sunny for like the last like week and a half, and like it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. It's supposed to be a little cooler than that over the weekend. Dropping down into the 50s at night, upper 40s even.
Totally,
windows are open. Love it.
Okay, totally good with that. Totally good with that. You may or may not be good with this, but Carla, we're going to start with the pop quiz.
Okay. It is midterm week for me. So
it's okay. All right. Yeah. So you should be ready for this. Pop quiz. Was it time for Paul Chryst to go at Wisconsin?
That's a great question. It's funny. It was having conversations about this. Like, it's really interesting that like Paul Chryst is one of those guys that like, he doesn't really have like a brand about himself.
No.
Like he's just kind of the nondescript football coach, which maybe was a downfall in the era of college football that we're living in right now. Right. And was it time for him to go? I don't know if I would have fired him mid-season.
Okay.
I don't know if he would have lasted the off season. I think mid-season might be a little bit of a rush to judgment. I mean, he's done good things at Wisconsin. But at the same time, that like they've got a really good, interim coming in that, is going to get some head coaching looks elsewhere. And, there are other people that would be really interested in that job. And so why not now? I don't think I would have fired him yet. I think it's a little bit reactionary, but I'm not sure if Wisconsin continued on the track that it was on. I don't think Paul Chryst would have lasted the offseason.
No, I agree with that. I mean, having seen them in person, not last weekend, but the weekend prior, it's not a Wisconsin team. That was not. Wisconsin should be one of the teams in the Big Ten that makes me
right. Badgers are annoying.
Yeah, and it just was not that at any point in that game. Yeah. And I haven't really seen that. I don't like the idea in college football of firing someone in midseason, because you're not going to make a hire, but maybe their situation is different in that they have, what's the guy's name? The interim guy. Yeah. The interim is, he could be a commodity once the season ends, and maybe Wisconsin wanted to sort of lock him up. It definitely gives them a chance to audition him. Given that, I'm assuming that has something to do with the timing of the change, and I guess, yeah, okay. Also, probably didn't help that the last loss was to Burt.
Yeah.
Just, as an oh by the way thing. That probably did not sit well. I don't think by any stretch that Wisconsin has like Auburn style alumni who are pulling strings and all that stuff. But that probably did not sit well in the broader Wisconsin football community. So,
but that being said, as was going on in our text thread that we have that goes on all weekend long, AJ hadn't brought up the point of didn't have Paul Chryst getting fired before Harsin on my bingo card this year, and no. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Like,
no, I would not.
It did kind of feel like it came out of left field, and it does kind of. I don't know what it is this year. The Big Ten just does not have like this after the big media blitz over the media rights and
Mhm.
adding 2 new teams into the conference, and it was like setting things up for the Big Ten to have this big year,
Mhm.
and it just kind of feels like it's meh. Like
Um,
you've got your top tier that's intriguing,
mhm.
but like we've lost the middle tier. The Michigan State, the Wisconsin, the Minnesota that's up and down. Like there's just not the consistency or the intrigue that we've seen
Mhm.
in past seasons where, I mean, last year we were talking about that gauntlet in the Big Ten East,
Mhm.
right? Of,
Yeah.
everybody playing each other, and it was just going to be whoever survived was going to be the one that came out of that division.
Well, I still think that exists, though. I mean, well, and I'm going to talk about Sparty a little bit later on, but I mean, with that exception, the East is still the East, and we none of the big three have gotten into playing each other, but it's coming very very soon.
Yeah, and
And
maybe once
that's
those
that's
games
still
get
going to
going,
feel like it should.
because I find myself on Saturdays when I'm looking for games to watch, I'm not turning the Big Ten games. I'm watching Big 12.
Mhm.
Because right now, like the Big 12 is where all the intrigue is.
Okay.
And so like I find myself looking for like what's going on in the Big 12 right now, because I mean that whole conference is like topsy-turvy this year.
Yeah.
Which makes it intriguing to watch.
Mhm.
So that's where my feeling is right now. Maybe that'll change, like you said, when we get into like the heart of the Big Ten schedule and we start getting into that gauntlet in the East.
Mhm.
Maybe my thoughts will change. But right now I'm just kind of like Big Ten.
Okay.
I hope that we get that energy back.
I think it's going to be fine when and I may or may not have mentioned this on the show, but Kelly, who was one of our designated Penn State guest hosts last weekend or last season, while you were lounging around eating bonbons,
Right.
she's kind enough to offer their extra tickets for me and my friend Patrick to go to the Ohio State Penn State game at the end of the month. And we were just talking about that a few days ago, and it's like these teams continue on the trajectory that they're on. And I know this would mean Penn State beating Michigan. That could be a top 5 game.
Yeah.
um and I'm trying hard not to get too up about that yet, because there's stuff obviously in between there, but that's gonna be fun.
The Knits have to beat Michigan for that to happen.
There
So
is
we'll
there is
see.
that there is that there is that you actually got to witness live college football last weekend.
I did. Live from Floyd. It was not the night that I had hoped it was going to
Sure,
be,
sure.
obviously. But I'm telling you, that Meep offense in person,
Mhm.
it's really hard to like put words to it.
Okay.
Because it's when you see it on TV, it's one thing, but to feel the pacing of it in person,
Yeah.
is mind blowing.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't call it, you can't call it a tempo offense. It's not tempo,
Mhm.
right? But it's methodical.
Mhm.
It's strategic. They move quickly when they sense they're going in for the kill. And you
Mhm.
could feel that when it would happen.
Hmm.
When,
Okay.
when they would have a couple big plays, and then all of a sudden they'd start picking up the speed.
Mhm.
And it wouldn't be like immediately, but you'd watch the snap clock,
Mhm.
right? And they would start getting earlier and earlier and
Okay.
earlier as they move down the field. So it's not a tempo, it's just kind of a pacing and understanding what's happening on the field.
Okay.
Really, really fascinating to watch in person. And Middle just didn't have an answer for the
Mhm.
entire game. I mean, Frank Harris has one heck of an arm. We've known that. I mean, and he went and put up a freaking school record against my Blue Raiders last week, 414 yards.
You did notice, as fast as Middle looked against Miami of all teams, you didn't. It was not as noticeable.
They're getting a
On
lot more
Friday.
contact.
Yeah.
The receivers are getting a lot more contact bumps right off the line, which
Yeah.
is legal,
Yeah.
and
They were. Meep was ready to handle that.
They were. And Cunningham early in the game missed a couple of wide open receivers. He was
Mm.
amped for the game and he overshot them. And you have to wonder, and I didn't have good views of that because, okay, so this is where I fully admit I was in the beer garden for most of the first quarter. Hanging out with former students, which was fun.
Nice.
So I was watching from the end zone. In fact, you might have seen me on TV because when Meep scored their first touchdown and they kicked the extra point, I was standing directly under the goalpost.
I got to go back and look.
And
hang on, right just a second. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I kind of want to go back and look and see if you can see me on TV. But so I didn't have a good angle to see it. But when he dropped back to release the ball, and you could tell there was a receiver sprinting down the field, and so it was one of those weird things where you would watch the play and then you turn around and look at the jumbotron to see what was happening at the end of it. So it was like boom, boom, and it was just out of arm's reach. And he did that twice. He did that twice in the first quarter, and next thing you knew, Meep was up 10-0 at the end of the first.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you felt like 10-0 wasn't that big of a deal, but ended up being a big deal. Yeah. Although in the second quarter was hilarious. I mean, there were 7 scores, 5 touchdowns, 2 field goals between the two teams, all in the second quarter, which was entertaining as heck. But those 2 field goals were middle field goals, and you have to wonder, had they been able to finish those drives, what would have happened?
That was the point of demarcation. If those are touchdowns, you go into halftime with a whole different feel of how that game is going.
Yeah. And they just never were able, they were down too much at the half. They just never really got back into it in the second half, unfortunately. So that was the end of that. They get an interesting week this week at UAB before they turn around and host Western Kentucky for homecoming. So that's going to be a really interesting game.
Are you going to go to that one too?
Maybe. I'm trying to figure that out. It's a day game. And I don't have babysitting for Ellie, so we got to figure out whether we could take her. That would be a lot.
It could be a lot. Yeah, sure. It's time to get her started though. I mean, let's do it now. Do it early. Why not?
And I mean, heck, we tailgated. I had tailgaters outside of my office. And so I didn't realize that it was my first middle game, right? So there are tailgaters outside of my office. My office is actually one of that building is actually one of the really hubs of tailgating.
Okay.
That's actually I walked out my office door and found a whole bunch of my former students out there, and hey, you want a beer? I was like, okay, this is fun. So it wouldn't be too bad to go and because then I would have my office upstairs, we could shuttle things. I don't know. We'll think about it. If the weather is nice,
you should go.
It might be worth going. Hey, and I will shout this out just because we can hopefully he'll help us do some promotion for this show.
Okay.
Former Bullapalooza participant Jake Rose,
yes,
who calls most of the middle games when they're not on the Network of Champions. He's the play-by-play guy. He is actually hosting the MTSU homecoming parade.
You've got to go see this. I mean, there is absolutely no question in my mind, having heard that. Jake, get work on Carla right now. Get her to that game. Get Ellie to that game. She doesn't have to have beer for a couple years still. So, that's it's got to happen. It's got to happen.
So it was a good time. It was a good first game on campus, but man, you wish that the early goings of that game would have gone a little bit differently, and
sure,
really could have seen what would have happened there.
Sure. I gotcha. Did anything did last weekend get weird enough that that there were things that you perhaps wanted to mention?
Yeah. Well, the first thing a quick thing I wanted to mention was I actually got a chance to watch a decent chunk of the end, or at least the fourth quarter. I don't know why, I must be a sicko. Watch the end of the Penn State Northwestern game. Because my God, that game was ugly.
Was it sleeting? It looked miserable.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was 50 and raining and windy and gross. And it wasn't a pretty win by any stretch, but sure. I made a note down that the Knits gave up 5 turnovers, which is terrible, abysmal, heading into the heart of Big Ten play. But that was a game the last 2 seasons that Penn State would have lost. And they didn't lose the game.
Yeah.
Right. That shows me something. That was a game that was the Illinois game.
Right? Yeah. Yes.
Same kind of concept that last year when they lost to Illinois. that was a game that they should have won. They should have won big.
Mm-hmm.
Things didn't go in their favor, and they still found a way to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
That shows some mettle. Not pretty. Lots of concerns heading into Big Ten play, but I'll take it.
I mean, I kind of think you got to give them a pass for, at least some of the turnovers, but because of the weather, because that's difficult for anybody to play in. 5, yeah, okay, that's rough, but the point that you make here is excellent. That is a game in the last 2 seasons they would have figured out how to lose that.
Yeah. And I did have the weekend was so bonkers that I totally forgot that I don't even remember what happened.
Yes.
Remember how Missouri almost beat Georgia?
Yes, I do.
That was the thing that happened.
I watched a good bit of that game. After what was the other night game? Clemson and NC State kind of felt like it was perhaps not as interesting. That almost happened.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the word mortable comes in.
Right.
Yeah, that was interesting. Interesting sort of in the context of that game, but also interesting in the broader vision of how this season's going to shake out. It's got to be encouraging for the other teams in the SEC to not look at Georgia, to look at Georgia and not think, oh God, it's the Death Star,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I got.
Okay. I have no idea. Why am I stuck on the ACC this year? What the hell is wrong with me?
Why are you stuck on the ACC and why am I stuck on the Big 12?
I don't know. I've had big questions, and I've brought this up about Florida State and Clemson, and what are they doing? Clemson, because of how just sort of not bad, but how sort of blah they were last year.
Right.
And then Florida State, we've talked about this a lot. Is this year that they have turned around? Are the Seminoles back, et cetera, et cetera? So watching both of these games a bit last weekend, Clemson, I mentioned just last week, DJU did not feel to me like the guy that Dabo probably thought he was getting. He did not look like the guy that he looked like when he was a freshman.
Yeah.
And filling in for Surfer Boy. He looked better against NC State, against a really good NC State defense, by the way. Sharper passes, I think better decisions, timely scrambles. It's not so good for Clemson's offense that he was the leading rusher on the day. But if Clemson's offense catches up to its defense, that's gonna be like Clemson from a few years ago. Good. So they still have some rough games to come up in the ACC, and we'll see how that goes. But I thought they took a step, at least one step forward against NC State at home last weekend. Florida State, the month of pain has begun.
Yeah.
And they got I think they lost by 10 at Wake. I don't know that the game was ever really in doubt. I feel like Wake was sort of in control through much of that time. So I'm still not sure, ready to say for sure where they stand. But they got to win this weekend, excuse me. They have to win against NC State. If they're, if I'm going to say yes, Florida State's back, that's a situation where they must win. Finally, mortables. We mentioned Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, especially with Bryce Young. You don't know what he's what kind of shape he's going to be in. We'll talk about their game this week, but Alabama continues to look mortable. We're not applying mortable or not to the Ivy League, but I am. We didn't get to talk about this last weekend because at that point, we knew that Drew was going to start practicing. The Big Red Bears had tailback wearing number 23 on the field in their win on Saturday at the Colgate Tartar Controls, which is like their big New York State non-conference rival. Drew got significant playing time. Not a ton of carries, which was what he was expecting. Well, I'll get to that in a second. This was they had they had a rough week against Yale at home last weekend. The offensive creativity that I saw in the first week at VMI was back. Really creative play calling. The Big Reds quarterback Jamison Wong runs really well and throws almost as well. And that's getting better. He's a sophomore. So that's a weapon that is going to be a challenge for the Ivy League, especially as this offense continues to progress. So Drew had 2 carries, one no gain, one was a 4-yard carry, which doubled his yardage total from last season. So that's a good start. We're happy with that. He just watching him, he hit his blocks. He sold fakes like it was his job, because it is. And there was one particularly nice one on a touchdown run. I think for the quarterback. I think that was a keeper that he carried out and smacked a linebacker in the hole. So it looked to me like he had a good day. Cornell should perhaps work on some defense. The final score was a 34-31 at Colgate, and that was with a walk-off field goal. Carla.
Yes.
I have been teasing you about ESPN Plus.
Yes.
You don't need ESPN Plus to watch Cornell this weekend.
Ooh, that's exciting.
They and this seems to be a thing. Like they have a nationally televised game on ESPNU on Friday night, where they will be hosting Harvard at I think at 7 p.m. on Friday night. So tune in. Look for number 23 in the red jerseys, because the Cornell will be at home, and we'll see what the Big Red Bears, and we'll see what Drew Powell is able to do against the Crimson. I think is what they are. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Is that okay? The Harvard Crimson. I don't know that AJ is going to weigh in on any Ivy League games, but as he does, he will have some things to say about Pac-12, Group of 5, whatever other games catch his fancy, and you never really know where that's going to go. But we're going to find out, because AJ is going to tell us right now. AJ.
Hey, it is this week's Group of 5 After Dark report. Recording this a little late this week, so we're going to focus entirely on Saturday's games. There's a bunch of stuff that should be pretty great on Friday night. If you're listening to this on Saturday, I was right about everything. Let's start at noon on Saturday. We have TCU, Kansas. Normally, in most regular seasons, this is a game that I get to preview because it is Wed Wibble Wibble week, and Carla and Crappy are talking about the Wed Wibble Wibble week. And I get to talk about this game because this is way more fun, because Kansas can occasionally jump up. No, it's been 15 years. 2007 is happening again, and you are getting TCU Kansas game day. That's right. Game day is going to Kansas, not the Wed Wibble Wibble week. It is incredible to me. This game should be stupid fun. TCU looked fantastic against Oklahoma last week. Kansas, a little banged up, but they might be good enough to take on this TCU team in a very, very real way. Please put your eyeballs on this game. That's on FS1 at noon. But I am going to talk about Web Wibble Wibble because Texas and Oklahoma are full-blown broken. No one wants to be at this game. Texas doesn't want to be there. They're kind of embarrassed. Oklahoma doesn't want to be there because they're super embarrassed. But this game should be stupid and pointy, and you should put your eyes on that game. That's on ABC at noon. We're going to go ahead. We're going to slide down to 2 p.m. This is on ESPN3. This isn't even on ESPN Plus, so you should be able to watch this game if you don't have an ESPN Plus subscription. We got Georgia Southern at Georgia State for the official title of GSU. Georgia Southern flipping from the option to a incredibly pass-heavy offense. If you would like to see a gunslinger, watch Kyle Van Treese from Georgia Southern. Buddy's putting the ball in the air. Whether it lands in the hands of his receiver, the hands of the other team, the ground, does not matter. Ball's going downfield. They're fantastic to watch. Georgia State is 1-4. And I know you're saying to yourself, AJ, they're 1-4. How good could they possibly be? They've been incredibly competitive and very, very close in all of these one-score games. This feels like G5 Nebraska-ish, but it feels like they could actually turn the corner because Scott Frost isn't their coach. So keep an eye on that game. We're going to keep going down to 3:30 p.m. on Fox. That's right, national television. Utah at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Please watch Pac-12 football. They really need the eyeballs because they keep putting stuff on Pac-12 Network. Just throwing that out there. But Utah absolutely hammered Oklahoma State last week. Or not Oklahoma State, excuse me. Same colors, same first letter of the name, Oregon State. Go Beavs. They absolutely hammered Oregon State last week and just could score at will. They are without their star tight end for the rest of the season. He was effectively Cameron Rising's check down guy. He's going to be good on Sundays soon. UCLA has Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he looked fan-flippin-tastic against Washington. Like, juked two defenders so hard that they tackled each other before he went into the end zone. It was amazing. This game should hopefully be just as fun, and you should put your eyes on it. Because also at 3:30 on Big Ten Network is Wisconsin Northwestern. Do not watch that game. I implore you, do not watch that game. We're going to keep going on down the line. Where did it go? 6 p.m. ESPN Plus. Western Kentucky at UTSA. UTSA went to middle. Carla was at the game. Middle kept it close, but not close enough. UTSA ended up taking that game over and winning in the end by a few scores. Western Kentucky is like low-key good. Like low-key real good. Like this is a Conference USA championship type preview matchup. Please watch this game. Western Kentucky still super fun on offense. UTSA, I mean, they're just so clean and fundamentally sound. Please watch this game. This one's going to be good. 6 p.m. ESPN Plus. Also, in the same general time frame, on ESPN3 at 7 p.m., UConn at FIU. This game's going to be gross. Like, truly disgusting and gross. But they're two really bad teams. And you know what happens when two really bad teams play each other? A potentially good game. Two negatives can make a positive in this league. Also, in that time frame, 7:30 p.m. on Fox, Washington State, USC. USC is kind of mortal. I don't think that the national media has picked up on that fact yet because USC keeps playing these games at 10:30 and they've got it locked up by halftime and nobody wants to stay up late. But USC is like real mortal. Oregon State got up and held them until the very, very, very end of the game when USC scored a touchdown late to get the win. Washington State could make this fun. Jake Dickert is their coach. He was the interim after Nick Rolovich got fired because he made choices about needles, dumb ones specifically. And Jake Dickert has really picked this team up. They're excited to play for him. They have played really, really well. So I expect this one to be somewhat fun and potentially exposes USC. 7:30 p.m. Big Ten Network, Iowa at Illinois. Bert's got this team rolling. They might have the best running back in the country. And, y'all, Illinois might be good. It's upside down season, and it's my favorite. Because you can't claim anything that happened before this. Illinois is good. And Iowa is brutally awful on offense. And Michigan made them look stupid on defense last week. Go ahead, Bert. Go get a dub here over your alma mater. 9 p.m. Pac-12 Network, so I'm watching it, and no one else apparently will. Oregon at Arizona. Oregon absolutely destroyed Stanford. Bo Nix had multiple long running touchdowns, just in case you're wondering how that game went. But you don't just go to the fishbowl and come out with a W that easily. Also, Oregon has a deep history of going to Arizona and losing games they should absolutely not lose. So, hey, you know, who knows? Bo Nix goes to Arizona, it's real hot outside, and bad Bo Nix comes out. Who knows what could happen? That's on Pac-12 Network, 9 p.m. FS1, 9:45 p.m., Fresno at Boise. This, on paper, name-wise, is a good game. In real life, this is a sad game. Boise was down to San Diego State by multiple points last week, and it did not look good. And then they landed on Jalen Green, who is a freshman quarterback for them, who single-handedly turned their offense around. They have a new offensive coordinator who's a former Boise head coach, Dirk Cutter. Pay attention to Boise. This might be the nascent, you can get on the bus early when everybody was off the blue turf. You can get on now, because this might be the game where Boise just goes out and scores a ton of points. Jake Haener is done for the season. Fresno is a completely different team without him, and they look real bad without him. So I expect Boise to roll here. 10:30 p.m. CBS-SN, the Network of Champions. Hawaii at San Diego State. San Diego State is truly bad. They're just bad, and they're down to their third or fourth string quarterback at this point. It makes a difference. Their offense was bad with the starter, but Hawaii, I know you've had a long time off. Hopefully you got some good fresh air, some exercise, got a whole lot of practice in so that you can go out and get a dub here in San Diego. And finally, on ESPN at 11 p.m., Oregon State-Stanford. Do not sleep on this game. This game might actually be really good. Tanner McKee might turn this around. Stanford's at home. Oregon State is still a very fun team, even though they got absolutely annihilated by Utah. You should stay up late and watch that one with me. That's been this week's Group of 5 After Dark Report. We will see you online on Saturday. Let's have a blast.
Thank you, AJ. We will be looking for those as we look through our list of games. We're not doing quite as many as we've done in the past couple of weeks, but Carla, I feel like we've sort of turned what the show is about, and we're not really looking for top 25 on top 25 matchups exclusively. We're just looking for interesting stuff. So we have 6 games this weekend that we're going to talk about. So speedish round. Are you? Did you have you stretched?
I did. Yeah,
okay.
I stretched before we started the show today. So I'm good.
I had SpaghettiOs for lunch, so I have carbo loaded.
Okay.
I don't know if you're able to do the same thing.
I had pizza for lunch and
okay.
Some rice for rice and chicken for dinner.
It's not pasta, but yeah, okay. The pizza especially. The carbohydrates there should be just fine. All right. So you ready?
I am ready.
Let's do it. Sweet. Let's go. All games on Saturday. We're going to be busy at noon on Saturday because there's a bunch on ESPN in that time slot. Number 8, Tennessee at number 25, Louisiana State. Tennessee is favored by 3.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is a fun 63.5. What do you think?
I present to you, I say this every week, I present to you this week's We Have No Idea game.
We have no idea. There needs to be a jingle for that or something.
There needs to be. That's almost as, just like my new, the weekend was so bonkers, I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah, you need one for that too.
This is becoming a thing. LSU's defense, solid. Which is not surprising with a Brian Kelly coach team, but so is Tennessee's offense. We've got a strength on strength matchup here. LSU's only loss on the season is that heartbreaker in week 1 against Florida State. Tennessee's coming off of a bye. The game's being played in the Bayou. So it's every time you look for an advantage for one of these two teams, it's counteracted by something from the other team. Right. Same thing here. Tennessee's the favorite, as you just mentioned, but the ESPN tracker gives LSU a 58.3% chance of winning the game.
It does.
We have no idea. The only time we've really seen, we saw LSU. They handled Auburn this past weekend. we're in that messy game, that messed up game against Florida State. This to me still feels like an early, big, huge test for LSU to figure out what this team really is. Tennessee has done what we would have expected them to do, but I feel like this is their first kind of big defensive test that they're going up against with this offense. At this point, this is like a really hesitation kind of call on my part. Like, I really want to pick LSU here playing at home, but I think Tennessee feels like the right decision.
Okay.
And I can't really put a finger as to why. Maybe it's because you got a first-year head coach in LSU, still trying to kind of figure out things. LSU has looked good, but not spectacular.
Right.
Solid. Tennessee has shown flashes of brilliance in a couple of moments, and so that's why I'm going to lean Tennessee in this game. But yeah, definitely, this is keep your eye on this game. If LSU is up like 14-3 early in this game, that wouldn't stun me one bit. Because the LSU defense is really good, and if they can confound that Tennessee offense, we've seen Tennessee fold under pressure. In past games. So Tennessee, I think.
Okay.
No idea.
My gut actually gave me a pretty solid read on this game. Just sort of the sort of a feeling. And perhaps my only hesitation here is the timing of the game. I'm not sure how LSU people do when they are told they have to function at noon on a Saturday.
That's a good point.
However, folks, the Carla and Crappy Show does not condone gambling. Certainly, there are places in the United States where it is legal to do so, including here in Pennsylvania,
in Tennessee. Yeah.
If you do, however, taking LSU in the points, or maybe even LSU straight up, feels like the right thing to do for me. The timing aside, and you talked about the strength on strength matchup here, and cliches are cliches for a reason. Defense wins
championships
stuff. And in the two LSU in the two SEC games that they played, LSU has only given up 16.5 points per game.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Tigers, assuming they all wake up on time. So that's my pick for that game. Also at noon, FS1. I feel like this should be big noon instead of Michigan, Indiana. I really think instead of being relegated to FS1,
Little Nude.
Didn't we call this Little Nude? We did call this. Yes, we did call this Little Nude, and it is not where this game belongs, but it is where this game is. Number 17 TCU at number 19 Kansas. TCU is favored by 7 points, and the AJ Fun Index of a truly fun 67.5 points, which I think is the highest of the season for a game that we've talked about so far. Kansas? Carla? Kansas?
I want nothing more than a 6-0 Kansas team.
That'd be awesome. I'm absolutely on board with that sentiment. Yes.
Like, I really, really want Kansas to win this game, but the Jayhawks defense is going to have their work cut out for them. Against this TCU offense, it's averaging 550 yards per game. Yeah. The Horny Toads didn't just beat Oklahoma last week; they blew them out.
Smoked them.
Like, not even close.
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
And when was the last time we said that about Oklahoma?
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. I mean, Sonny Dykes has this team outperforming expectations. But you could say the exact same thing about Kansas head coach Lance Leipold.
Yes.
Right? These two are the Cinderella stories of the Big 12 this year. And I'm going to go against what I just said about LSU and Tennessee and saying that I think the offensive team, I like the offensive team here. But I mean, I don't know. I really want Kansas to win this game. They're playing at home, but that's going to be a huge ask of their defense to slow down this TCU offense that's really firing on all cylinders. When you look at the scores, like when you compare the wins of each team side by side, I mean, the TCU offense is just putting up consistently more points.
It's crazy.
It's a juggernaut.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if Kansas is going to have the firepower to slow them down enough to be able to keep up with this. So unfortunately, my dream for the 6-0 Jayhawks, even though that's what I really want, I think TCU is the pick here.
I kind of you have to go that way. I'm not sure. I don't know that how much we need to talk about defense. And Vegas seems to think to feel the same way with that AJ Fun index.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're gonna get in just a shooting match, I'm not sure that TCU is the team you want to try to keep up with.
Right.
That is a tough chore. I mean, what they did against the legendary defensive genius Brent Venables.
Yeah.
Crappy said with sarcasm dripping from his voice. What you hope for a lot of scoring. You hope for a fun game, and you hope that the Jayhawks, they're at home. Ball bounces a funny way in the fourth quarter, and maybe they're right there. But
they get game day for the first time ever.
So a lot of stuff working in the favor of Rock Chalk Jayhawk, but I think you got to pick TCU for this game. Also at noon on ABC, that game would be a better choice than this game for any national broadcast. But yeah. I suppose we have to include the Wed River rivalry. I'm going to call this, given the state of these two teams, I'm going to call this the SEC Buyer's Remorse Bowl. This is Texas versus Oklahoma. Texas is favored by 7. The AJ Fun Index is a truly fun 65.5 points. Carla?
It's funny that you say that, because my husband and I had this conversation last week about how the Big 12 just has to be absolutely beaming right now. The teams that are staying in the Big 12 are the teams that are winning the Big 12 right now.
Yes.
But anyhow, Oklahoma's lost 2 straight. It's something we haven't seen from Oklahoma in a long time.
0-2 in the conference.
Yeah. And they got banged up last week too. Like, not only is TCU like really, really good offensively, like they're bruising on defense. Not that there's a lot of defense, but when they do play defense, I mean, they're banging them up pretty good. And Oklahoma took the brunt of that last week. So we don't really know who's available for Oklahoma at this point. We're doing this on Tuesday, right? Texas coming off of a nice win over West Virginia. They needed that after the overtime loss against Texas Tech. It sounds like there's a possibility that maybe Quinn Ewers could be back for this game. Yeah. Sark isn't talking about it at this point. He's not saying who's starting at quarterback, which leads me to believe that there is an inkling that he might be able to come back. I think Texas is getting healthier. Oklahoma's reeling. They feel like a team trending in the wrong direction right now. Yeah. I think this could be 3 in a row for the Sooners, and I'm going to take the Longhorns in the Wed River rivalry.
Okay. My notes for this game. You don't watch this game because of national implications or even conference implications, because there are none.
Right.
You watch this game because it is stupid fun every single year. And I feel like the only prediction that I want to make is that I definitely will be watching the second half, because that's when the fireworks are going to happen. Because we pick winners, I flipped a coin before we when I was writing the script, and the coin said Oklahoma. So sure, that's what I'm picking. Oklahoma.
This would be a game that Oklahoma would turn around and win.
It would actually, yes. In my my recent memory of this game is the team that should not win is the one that does. Yep. So this is my I have no idea game. I'm just watch it and let the points flow over you.
It's just not a Carla and Crappy Show season if we don't talk about the Wed River rivalry.
Exactly. I think that covers all 15 noon games that we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
We will head 3:30, or at it's at 10:30 or 11:30 on the West Coast. We will head to the Rose Bowl, accompanied by our friends at the Fox Network. Number 11 Utah at number 18 UCLA. It's not as shocking as Kansas.
Yeah.
But still,
right.
The Utes. I'm trying to say that like I'm a New Yorker and I'm complaining about the Utes. The Utes. Right. The Utes, them Utes were favored by 4.5 points, an AJ Fun index of a solid 65. Carla, what do you think?
UCLA is good.
Surprising, yes.
I mean, yeah, their first 4 wins of the season were all against cupcakes. AJ covered this in detail last week.
Yes, he did.
But that was an impressive win against Washington. The downside of that was that nobody saw it because it was on Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was otherwise occupied, so I didn't see any of that game. So is UCLA good?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, right? We do know that Utah is pretty good. Yes. Despite the loss at the Swamp earlier in the season. They've responded quite well.
Mm-hmm.
The Utah scoring defense is as good as expected. They're holding teams down to not very many points per game, but
we happen to know that Utah is comfortable playing in the Rose Bowl.
That is true.
According
that a little bit more
according to
than others.
To the rather uncomfortable memories that I have from January 1st.
Yes, that's very true. And also, not surprisingly, the Bruins running a Chip Kelly offense are putting up 500 yards per game.
Yes.
File that under not surprised. I think Utah has to be the pick here. We know a little bit more about them at this point in the season. I feel like that defense is going to be able to slow down UCLA. But UCLA went and screwed around and beat Washington last week. Mm-hmm. Anything is possible. Keep an eye on this one. I'm going to take Utah, but yeah, keep your eyes on this. This could be interesting.
This is I am old enough to remember a time when the Rose Bowl was a good, not great, but a good home venue for UCLA, and that had more to do with the quality of the team. I mean, it's a legendary venue in college football, period. But it's such a lousy place potentially to play your home games. I mean, the Los Angeles, the folks in Los Angeles are sort of indifferent about going to, unless it's the Lakers. They're like, what? I can go surfing. I can go do this. I can any of these. Why would I? So even if the Bruins, if UCLA gets 60,000 or 75,000 people there, you're talking about a building that's only 2/3 full or 3/4 full, and it's just like, the Utes, as I noted, appear to be just fine with playing in the Rose Bowl, the building, and also the game.
Yeah.
I even with UCLA's great start, I think the experience that Utah has in the setting means that they're going to end Utah's streak. Do pay attention to this game because it could be fun. I did the Chip Kelly offense is always just sort of makes my Midwestern brain go, yeah. But it could be a fun one to pay attention to. I don't know how this game happened. This next one, you have two of the Jesusiest schools in the country, BYU and Notre Dame, and somehow they're playing in Las Vegas. This is at 7:30 on NBC. Number 16, Brigham Young versus Notre Dame in the Black Hole in the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Notre Dame is favored by 3.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is a not so fun 52. Carla, how did this happen?
That's what I have here. BYU and Notre Dame playing in Vegas. Okay, sure. Here's the thing, though. I actually think that this plays in the Cougars' favor. I think
Okay.
BYU and it's a shorter trip, right?
Yes.
To
Yeah,
get to
absolutely.
Vegas than it is to go to South Bend. So I think this might backfire a bit on the Irish because they're not going to have that true home field advantage. Yes, the Irish have fans all across the country. They like to exploit that all the time.
Blah, blah,
Blah,
blah,
blah,
blah,
blah, right?
blah, blah, blah.
I think playing this game on the West Coast, toward in the West, anyways. I know
Yeah.
I know where Vegas is located. But playing this game out West, I think might be a dangerous proposition for the Irish here. If BYU can win this game, I think they can keep themselves, at least for now, in the conversation for a playoff spot. I don't, there's a lot of things would have to happen.
Yeah.
But if their only loss this season is against a good Oregon team, then I think there's still at least a possibility of them being in the mix.
Okay.
Despite the line here, BYU has a solid offense. Ask Baylor about that. Going up against an Irish defense that at times has been questionable, particularly in the secondary. That being said, though, Notre Dame's pass rush has been there for their last 2 wins. They were 0-2. They've now evened up to 500 at 2-2. So will Jaron Hall have enough time to throw the football? That's the big question here. And whether or not the BYU offensive line, which has been good, will it be able to slow down that Notre Dame pass rush? But it's also worth noting here, I'm kind of like going against myself again here. Can BYU hasn't really quite been the same since that Oregon loss.
Correct.
They've picked up 2 wins. They were fine, but they weren't huge margins against Wyoming and Utah State. That's not the best competition in the world. Looking mortable. Very similar to Georgia, right? Georgia has looked mediocre against Kent and Missouri. And that's kind of the same thing we're looking at here with BYU against Wyoming and Utah State. I think BYU is going to be able to flip the script here and pull this off in Vegas, which is just like a sentence that I never, ever in a million years thought I would ever utter.
Are BYU fans even allowed to stay in the Las Vegas city limits? I mean, would that be?
I don't know.
I
don't know, but I'm going to take the Cougs. I like them better. I think they're a more complete team. We've seen them pull off big wins. See Baylor. And the fact that this is a neutral site field, I think really plays in their favor. I think BYU finds a way to win this football game.
I find that the whole idea of this game and where it is just absolutely hysterical, which is why I'm going to keep an eye on it on Saturday evening. This is a game that Notre Dame should lose. I think BYU almost across the board is better every unit. It's a better team. Maybe with the exception of defensive line or front seven where Notre Dame's got solid guys. However, this is also the kind of game that Notre Dame wins.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think I would pick Notre Dame without hesitation if the game was in South Bend.
I would lean that way too, I think.
But I still think, I mean, both teams have something to play for. You said BYU, with the one loss that they have, a quality loss, if you have such a thing. They're still in the conversation for the postseason. Notre Dame's not with the 2 losses they have, but if Notre Dame, if they're going to salvage a respectable season, and Notre Dame can do that, winning out, that could be a New Year's Six bowl game for them, maybe. And I've mentioned before that Notre Dame tends to get second looks that other teams maybe do not because it's Notre Dame. So Notre Dame comes in here. They're treating this as a must win because it is. If they want to get that respectable season. And in those, the uniform is actually pretty cool. The icy white with the gold letters and stuff. Notre Dame's going to win this game.
Hmm.
They're going to win this game. I can't. And then all the fans are going to go crazy in Las Vegas. I don't know. I don't know. At 8 p.m. on CBS, Texas A&M is visiting number 1 Alabama. The Alabama Mortables. Bama is favored by 24. The AJ Fun Index is a not fun 51.5 points. Most of those will be scored by Alabama, which gives you the preview of what I think about this game. Carla, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, without even really talking here, I mean, yes, Bama is the pick here.
Yes.
But I mean, this game is super intriguing after the beef these two coaches had in the offseason,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole reason why when we were looking at games this week, I'm like, we have to talk about this game because like, how is this like Jimbo Saban like feud going to play out on the field? Like, I just think that's going to be really, really intriguing, and which team is going to be more amped out of this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we threw a wrinkle into everything last week when Bryce Young got hurt. And so now you have the possibility of an Alabama that has looked mortable, possibly being without their starting quarterback in a game against a team that has periodically been ranked. And this is an A&M team that you just never know which team's going to show up. This A&M team feels a lot like Auburn the last several years, right? Good Bo Nix, bad Bo Nix, right? Like
yes.
which A&M team are we going to see here? Right? The one that has showed some mettle and pulled off some really tough wins, or the one that like folded and lost to Appy State?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We really don't know. A&M just, they haven't been consistent. Even with the question marks at quarterback, the fact that this game is being played in Tuscaloosa at night, Bama is still the pick here. Will it be 24 points? If Bryce Young was in this game, my big question here would have been, is Saban going to run up the score? Because of the beef that happened in the offseason, just to rub it in, because we've seen Saban do that when he has an axe to grind. And Saban has an axe to grind here.
Yes, he does.
But he might not have the full firepower to be able to do something like that. So Bama's the pick. We'll see what the spread is here, but don't be surprised, like late in the game, like if Bama's controlling the ball, like if they score again, that's Saban.
Gonna go for 3.
Yeah.
Why did you go for 2? Because I couldn't go for 3. Did you happen to see the touchdown run that the backup quarterback made after Bryce Young was sat down?
I didn't.
Dude would be. I have no idea how he throws the ball, but he would be a good tailback pretty much anywhere. So that is a frightening thing. I mentioned the Death Star earlier, but that's just like, oh God, that's going to be something we have to deal with in the future.
Yeah. Next man up is a thing in Alabama.
Only one reason to watch this, and it's not because there's a question about who's going to win, because there is no question about who's going to win. I just wanted to see if either Jimbo or Saban take a swing at each other, either before the game or after. That'd be kind of fun. But that's going to be about it. If you're an Alabama fan, yeah, watch, because it's going to be you're going to enjoy yourself. If you're a Texas A&M fan, and good time to go out to dinner, maybe. Don't worry about paying attention to this one too closely. Also at 8 p.m. on the mythical ACC network, which I do actually get on Hulu, so I can watch this if I want to continue my ACC fascination. Florida State, unranked Florida State at number 14 NC State. As we mentioned earlier, the Pack is favored by 3.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is a not so fun 50. What do you think?
And both these teams are coming off of super disappointing losses last weekend. So which team bounces back, right? That's the big question here. NC State has the better defense statistically.
Yes.
And they're playing at home.
Yes.
That's 2 check marks in the Wolfpack's favor. Which leads me to want to pick the home team here. But the big question for me is, like, if the Noles lose 2 straight, what happens? Right? What's the mettle of this team this year? Are are they going to fold if they lose two
Yeah,
straight,
you do
or are
wonder.
they going to be able to, come back, because they've still got some huge games on their schedule. They still have to play Clemson, right? And if you lose these two games, do you get up for the Clemson game, or do you say our season's over, right? So that's really what the intrigue here is for me, is that if Florida State loses this game, and I think because the Wolfpack's defense is better and they're playing at home, I think that gives them the edge in this game.
Yeah.
How does Florida State handle this? Or even if they get down early, will they have the ability to like come back, right? Or
That's a great point. That's a great point.
So I'm going to say the Wolfpack here, but I think this is an intriguing game to watch to see which of these teams responds better after the disappointing losses last weekend.
And I think you just going off notes here. I think you kind of hit on why I've been so curious about Florida State. I again, referencing my age, I'm old enough that Florida State was one of the programs.
Yeah.
As I started to pay attention to college football, and granted, this in Bobby Bowden years, but I'm fascinated to see what it takes to get back to that point. I think that's why I'm so curious, because Florida State, without question, has taken big steps this season.
Yeah.
Does that pay off in results? I don't know. And if it doesn't pay off in results, as you said, what happens? What happens in this game when you go to Wake, you think, okay, this is winnable. This is something we can do. And then, Wake pretty much handles you at home with a 10-point loss. And then you got to go to NC State and it's maybe not the same. It's not the same offensive threat, but how are you going to score on those guys? They're giving up just 15 points a game. Right. They're giving up under 100 yards rushing per game. And you're playing them on their home field. So if you lose this, or as you said, if they go down early, how does this team react? This is why I talk about teams that know how to win. Utah versus UCLA, road game for Utah, but they've been there, right? In recent history, they've done it, and UCLA has not. UCLA is going to, maybe if they continue, they're going to get there. I think Florida State, if the coaching staff is able to keep these guys kind of focused on what they're doing, even with a loss, they will get there. Florida State's going to get talent, but at some point, it's what it's your emotions and what your intellect is, and what those processes are, and how you accept those challenges. So that's brief dissertation why I'm so interested in Florida State this year. The point, for those of you who are still paying attention, is NC State's going to win this. And then Florida State's, then we will see. I mean, the really big test, Florida State will finally get one of these games at home, but it's Clemson. So yeah. I'm my other prediction involving this game is we're going to talk about Florida State and Clemson next week. So
yeah,
just so you guys know, boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on YouTube or the show's Facebook page. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. And be sure to come back next week when we will do this again. We may or may not talk about what we got wrong. I don't know. Carla, before your final thought, this is part 2 of your pop quiz.
Okay.
How will my Cleveland Guardians do in baseball's postseason?
I honestly have no idea.
Just make it up. I don't care.
They won the division, right?
They did. They won pennant. We don't know who they're playing yet. They are third place among the division champions. So they will
get a wild card.
They will get one of the wild card series. Yes.
Okay, so they'll win the first series.
Okay.
And and then we'll see what happens in the second. But they'll get one series win for sure.
I'm good there. No one. A bunch of kids. I don't know how they got to where they got to, but it's been fun. And if you're not watching, I'm wearing Guardians gear because I'm pretty stoked about this as always. The postseason baseball is a special kind of torture. I don't know what it is about it. For me, it's more intense than hockey playoffs. It can be as intense, or in some cases more so than college football games. But having said that, I'm ready. I'm looking forward to it.
I wouldn't know I'm a Pirates fan.
No, I know, but
I've had one postseason in my life.
Right. Two. Yeah. Pittsburgh is a fun town. I have an older friend who swears that Pittsburgh is a baseball town, first and foremost. And the 2 years, and I was working for the quote large newspaper in town for both of those. You get a sense that maybe that's right. That there's a special place for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And when things are going well on those rare occasions, Pittsburgh kind of goes nuts. So that's something.
It's still the best ballpark in all of Major League Baseball.
That's tough to argue. I as much as I want to, it's tough to argue.
Baseball might be subpar, but you know what? Like going to games in PNC Park, that was my favorite thing to do when I lived in Pittsburgh. Was just like on a random night, buying a $12 seat, sitting up in the top, not paying any attention to the game, just enjoying the city, enjoying the pierogi race, and eating hot dogs and drinking beer. And it was just, there's nothing better. There's nothing better than that.
I am not arguing with you for any reason whatsoever. Do you have any college football related final thoughts?
One game that I have my eye on.
Yes.
Because I'm apparently slightly obsessed with the Pac-12 too, and I'm old and I don't like staying up late. So here's Wazoo at USC in prime time. 7:30 Eastern kick on Fox.
Right.
Wazoo gave Oregon a run for its money a couple of weeks ago. And Wazoo has been known in the last couple of seasons to like meddle with the Pac-12, right? Like it's like a loss to Wazoo that like messes up Pac-12's hopes for the playoff, right?
They probably didn't help Paul Christ's situation at Wisconsin either.
They didn't, right? So as much as I would, there are things that I like. There's nothing that I like more than when K-State kind of plays their role in the Big 12 and just kind of messes things up. Wazoo and the Pac-12 doing the same thing is a very close second. I just love it when that happens. Games on primetime. I mean, yes, the Trojans are the pick here, but keep an eye on this one. If the Cougars keep this close early, flip it on.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to bring up is a couple of weeks ago, and I never asked him why he was asking, so I have no idea about the context. He just asked me out of the blue. AJ asked me out of the blue, which game is scarier based on recent history, not so much what's going on this year, but just sort of recent history. Which game is scarier, Michigan or Michigan State? And I did not hesitate, and I said Michigan State. And again, based on recent history, it's not close. It's Sparty. Mark D'Antonio had a couple of great teams in that stretch.
It was a Rose Bowl once.
Great teams in a very Big Ten Jim Tressel kind of way. But through that whole time period, they've been good pretty consistently. I have no idea what's going on with him this year. I mean, Mel Tucker, he's a good coach. He made some good additions through the portal in the off season. The team has, they have time with him and his system under their belts, full off season. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, but because it's October, because we're in the conference season now. This is when my neuroses sort of kick in. So I start thinking about, oh man, it's Michigan State. It's not just the first conference road game, but it's the first road game for Ohio State. And then my brain is just like, there are a bazillion reasons why I need to be worried at 4 p.m. on Saturday when this game kicks off. And of course it's not based on reality. It's just my football brain and how it works. Ohio State's going to win this game. I think they're 25-point favorites. So, but there is something about Sparty recently, and it does have to do with Michigan State's recent performance as well. And I would remind everybody or Michigan's performances recently, and I would remind everybody that Ohio State had won 8 straight before last season.
Yeah.
In that series. As an opponent that's given Ohio State trouble in recent years, that's more than enough to get my college football neuroses kind of percolating. But that's why this game is great. That's why the sport is great. That's why I love the Big Ten. You have this stuff every year, and anything can happen. Anything can happen. But it is a great week. I will say this because I say this. It is a great week to beat a team from Michigan. So, having said that, Carla.
Yes.
Oh, man, we're in Big Ten season.
We are.
And
it's my fall break.
And it's your fall break.
I need to watch some football this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I'm not even pretending like coming up with reasons why I'm not doing anything on Saturday. I'm just sitting on the couch and I have the 2 TVs and I'm just like, yeah, we're doing it. I don't care. Carla, thank you once again.
Yep. Thanks.
It's another great time talking with you. Thank you to AJ for his participation. Thank you to Drew Powell for getting back on the field and giving me a reason to be really excited about the Big Red Bears. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys as always for watching, for listening, for your support. Come back next week and we will do this all again. Beat Michigan. See you guys.
Cheers.